Hi, I'm Christine Bilas, and I'm here to talk about wedding etiquette and the invitation. According to Entertaining from Ancient Rome to the Super Bowl, an encyclopedia, wedding invitations date as far back as the Middle Ages. Now, during the Middle Ages, which was between 500 to 1500s, weddings were announced by a town crier, and everyone was invited. By the 1600s and the introduction of the printing press, marriages were announced in the paper. Invitations sealed in double envelopes were hand-delivered by postal workers going into the 1800s, and finally, invitations were sent via the postal service beginning in the 1900s, as is customary today. So my son is getting married in May, and there are lots of details to be taken care of, most importantly, the invitation. So can you guess what I'm about to talk to you about? That's right, proper etiquette for the invitation. A lot of people don't know how to properly pick out an invitation, how an invitation should be written, the style, and most importantly, addressing the invitation. So I'm going to discuss all of that with you today. Let's first discuss the style. Emily Post declares that the invitation does a great deal more than inform people of the date, time, and place of your wedding. It's the first thing that guests will see, and it sets the tone for the event. So when a couple is looking at invitations, they should match the style of their wedding to the style of the invitation, so that it basically conveys to their guests what style of wedding it is going to be. Should they dress formal? Should they dress less formal? Is it casual? Is it, down home? So a formal wedding deserves a formal style, and a less formal would be more of a simple and understated, and a bold style is great for the big and showy wedding. Modern invitations are all the rage these days, with their bright colors, intricate typeface, and the over-the-top invites that are in the shape of, sometimes you find a puzzle, or you get a box and you open it and then something flies out of it like a butterfly. That's an invitation. Or you get, you might as well have a town crier deliver it to you. It comes rolled up and you unroll it. There's all different types and styles of invitations, and it just depends on your budget and what type of a wedding you're having, and quite frankly, what type of a couple you are. It's going to tell the guests as well what they're going to expect. So thankfully, tradition continues to hold strong, and a traditional invitation would be on a heavyweight paper and have a beautiful script, and it would be formal writing. And have you figured out, I'm huge on tradition. The majority of people have no idea what really goes into creating the proper invitation, especially a wedding invitation. I just happen to be a carbon copy of my mom's strong traditional upbringing, and I'm the oldest of 4 girls, so I guess it was kind of drilled into me a little more. However, I never ended up with a huge wedding. My first wedding was at the courthouse, so there was no wedding. And then my second marriage, it was a marriage in a church, and then we had the reception in the backyard. However, I sent out traditional invitations, and it was like church dress. So everyone wore, the men wore suits and the women wore what they would normally wear to church. And it was a beautiful event. Now one of my younger sisters had one of the big traditional weddings, and her husband is Hispanic, so there was even more tradition brought into that. So their invitations were a little more formal. So if you want to know, we're going to look at this is how an invitation should look, and what should be included, as well as the language and format. So Emily Post dictates that wedding invitations be phrased in the third person, names written in full, and all dates and times spelled out. So if you pretend that you're British, then you've got it. So the top is your host's name. So it would be Mr. and Mrs. Let's just use my name, Mr. and Mrs. John H. Bilas. You don't have to use the middle name, but you have to use the father's name, John, and then our last name, Bilas. And it would say, request the pleasure of your company at the marriage of their daughter. We're going to pretend like I have a daughter, not a son. And then you would have who's getting married. So you would have the bride's name first. So yes, so you'd have the bride's name first, and then you would have her fiance's name down here, and you would have their complete name. You don't use any names other than their birth name. Then the next step is the date. So the date is all spelled out. So it would be Saturday, the 21st of April, if that's when it is. Theirs is going to be Friday, the 21st of May. And then it would say 2020, all spelled out. And then it would have the time at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And that is all spelled out. There are no numbers involved. The numbers are spelled out. Then after that, you would put where the wedding is. And you don't have to put the address of where the wedding is. You can just put the name of where, for instance, if it's in a church, you just put that. And then you would put at the bottom, if you want to, like reception to follow, or this says dinner and dancing to follow. Now, the information for the reception and the information of where it is, that could be put on an insert, and we'll get to those in a minute. The inserts are different cards that accompany the invitation that explain where the wedding will be, the directions to the wedding, and where the reception will be, and any other information that you want to give, like directions or hotel accommodations, that kind of thing. All of those things can accompany the actual invitation. So let's talk about how to assemble it. You would take the invitation after you've gotten it all done. Now, the wedding invitation you can have this printed. Any printer knows how to print and knows the verbiage that you need to use on your invitations. And you can just ask them for help if you don't have anyone that can direct you, or if you don't know. You can also Google the information. It's very easy to find all that information, but just ask your printer. So you can have your invitations printed. There's all different types of fonts, styles. The wedding invitations, like I said a minute ago, can be formal to just simple. They can have, floral on them. Just an overabundance of different styles. I tend to like, because I'm a traditionalist, I tend to like just a plain manila colored, kind of an off-white, and mine, for instance, had a gold little trim around it. It was very, very simple. So next comes the envelopes. The envelopes are very important because you do not want to have your envelopes printed. Proper etiquette is you handwrite every envelope that you are sending out. That basically shows that you have taken a personal touch, given a personal touch to your wedding invitations, and that you care about the people that you are sending them to. So those are personally handwritten, and the names of each guest are written out. So for instance, if you're sending it to a couple, let's say you're sending it to me, it would be Mr. and Mrs. John Bilas, and then our address, and that's all spelled out. Then if there are any children, say we had children, the names of the children go on the inner envelope. So you have an inner envelope, and the inner envelope would have the name of, you'd have Mr. and Mrs. Bilas, or you could say John and Christine Bilas, and then underneath that, if I had a young child, would be Kyle Bilas, and that's all that goes on that envelope. And then you would assemble it with the invitation, and then you would put every other piece on top of it according to size, and then you slip it inside the envelope, the outer envelope. Don't forget to put a return address on there. You slip it inside the outer envelope, but the flap part, when the guest opens the invitation, the first thing they see would be the invitation, everything with the writing on it. So you don't want to flip it around. You want to have the writing and information as the guest opens the invitation. All right, so that is how to address and do a wedding invitation with the proper etiquette. And then let me just show you this. This is my son, and this was him proposing to his fiance. Oh, and that's Knox. So they're getting married, like I said, in May. So I've got a wedding coming up, so I had to look up all the proper etiquette for wedding information. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I leave you saying, if you don't know what the proper etiquette is, then just Google it. Google it, ask your event coordinator, or ask your printer. Okay? Thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed. Bye.